Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian Kirk with Eat to My Own Beat, taking the road less traveled, with the History of Portugal, episode 63. And the episode title is The Province of the Umayyad Caliphate. Just wanted to follow up. I don't usually do this on this channel, but we do have a YouTube channel as well that has all the history of Portugal lessons on it, and we have other things on there as well. So look Eat to My Own Beat on YouTube, and you will find all of our different aspects on our channel. We have Farsi lessons, we've got history of Portugal, obviously, and some other features that we do on a regular basis. And we also have our website, which is just finished being updated at www.eattomyownbeat.com. And until then, let's go on to the province of Umayyad Caliphate. During the caliphate of the Umayyad Caliph Al-Walid I, the Moorish commander, Tariq ibn Ziyad, led a small force that landed at the Gibraltar on April 30th, 711, ostensibly to intervene in the Visigoth civil war. After a decisive victory over King Roderick at the Battle of Godale on July 19th, 711, Tariq ibn Ziyad joined the Arab governor Musa ibn Nasir of Ifriqiya, brought most of the Visigoth kingdom under Muslim rule in a 7-year campaign. They crossed the Pyrenees and occupied the Visigoth Septimina in southern France. Most of the Iberian Peninsula became part of the expanding Umayyad Empire, and under the name Al-Andalus. It was organized as a province and subordinate in Africa. So, for their first few decades, the governors of Al-Andalus were appointed by the Emir of Karauna, rather than the Caliph of Damascus. The regional Caliph capital was set as Cordoba, and the first influx of Muslim settlers were widely distributed. The small army Tariq led in the initial conquest consisted mostly of Berbers, while Musa, largely Arab force of over 12,000 soldiers, was accompanied by a group of Maoli. This is a non-Arab Muslim that were clients of the Arabs. The Berbers soldiers accompanying Tariq were garrisoned in the center of the north of the peninsula as well as the Pyrenees, while the Berber colonists who followed settled in all parts of the country. North, east, south, and west, Visigoth lords who agreed to recognize Muslim suzerainty was allowed to retain their fiefs, notably in Murica, Galicia, and Ebro Valley. Resistant Visigoths took refuge in the Cantabrian highlands, where they carved out a rump state, the kingdom of Astoris. In 720, the Al-Andalus governors launched several Safara raids into Aquitaine, but were severely defeated by Duke Odo the Great of Aquitaine. At the Battle of Toulouse in 721, however, after crushing Odo's Berber ally, Uthman ibn Nasser, on the eastern Pyrenees, Abdul Rahman al-Ghaffaqi led an expedition north across the western Pyrenees and defeated the Aquitanian duke, who in turn appealed to his Frankish leader Charles Martel for assistance, offering to place himself under Carolingian sovereignty. At the Battle of Poitiers in 732, the Al-Andalus raiding armies was defeated by Charles Martel. In 734, the Andalusia launched raids in the east, capturing Avignon and Arles, and overran most of Provence. In 737, they traveled up the Rhone valley, reaching as far as the Burgundy. Charles Martel of the Franks, with assistance of Liutprand and the Lombards, invaded Burgundy and Provence and expelled the raiders by 739. Relations between Arabs and Berbers in Al-Andalus had been intense in the years after the conquest. Berbers heavily outnumbered the Arabs in the province, had done the bulk of the fighting, and were assigned the harsher duties. Although some Arab governors had cultivated their Berber lieutenants, others had grievously mistreated them. Mutinies by Berber soldiers were frequent. In 729, the Berber commanders Manus had revolted and managed to carve out a rebel state in Sardinia for a while. In 740, a Berber revolt erupted in Maghreb, which is northern Africa. To put up the rebellion, the Umayyad Caliph Hisham dispatched a large Arab army, composed of regiments, juns, of Bilad Asham, to North Africa. But the great Umayyad army was crushed by the Berber rebels at the Battle of Bangura in Morocco. Heartened by the victories of their northern African brethren, the Berbers of Al-Andalus quickly raised their own revolt. Berbers garrisons in the north of the Iberian Peninsula mutinied, disposed their Arab commanders, and organized a large rebel army to march against the strongholds of Toledo, Cordoba, and Algeciras. In 741, Balij B. Bashir led a detachment of some 10,000 Arab troops across the straits. The Arab governor Al-Andalus, joined by his force, crushed the Berber rebels in a series of ferocious battles in 742. However, the quarrel immediately erupted between the Syrian commanders and Andalusia, the so-called original Arabs, or the earlier contingents. The Syrians defeated them at a hard-fought battle of Aquitaine in 742, but there were too few to impose themselves on the province. The quarrel was settled in 743 when Abdullah Lakarat al-Assam, the new governor of Al-Andalusia, assigned the Syrians to regimental fiefs across Al-Andalus. The Damascus Jund was established in Elvira, which is Granada, the Jordan Jund in Rayu, Malaga, and Arsadana, the Jund Fistalin in Medina, Sidonia, and Jerez, the Hymns, Jund in Seville and Neba, and the Quinzar Jund in Jain. The Egypt Jund was divided between Beja in the west of Tumerd, or Murica, in the east. The arrival of the Syrians potentially increased the Arab element in the Iberian Peninsula and helped strengthen the Muslims' hold on the south. However, at the same time, unwilling to be governed, the Syrian Juns carried out an existence of autonomous feudal anarchy, severely destabilizing the authority of the governor of Al-Andalus. A second significant consequence of the revolt was the expansion of the kingdom of Astoris, hitherto confined to the enclaves of the Cantabrian highlands. After the rebellious Berber garrisons evacuated the northern frontier fortresses, the Christian king Alfonso I of Astoris set about immediately seizing the empty forts for himself, quickly adding the northwestern provinces of Galicia, Leon, and the fledgling kingdom. The Asturians evacuated the Christian populations from the towns and villages of the Galician Leonese lowlands, creating an empty buffer zone of the Douro Valley, the desert of Douro. The newly emptied frontier remained roughly in place for the next few centuries as the boundary between the Christian north and the Islamic south. Between the frontiers and his heartland in the south, the Al-Andalus state had three large March territories. The Lower March, capital initially in Merida, later Bajous, the Middle March, and the Upper March. These disturbances and disorders also allowed the Franks, now under the leadership of Pepin the Short, to invade the strategic strip of Septima in 752, hoping to deprive Al-Andalus of an easy launching pad of raids into Francia. After a lengthy siege, the last Arab stronghold, the citadel of Narom, finally fell to the Franks in 759, and Andalus was sealed off at the Pyrenees. The third consequence of the Berber Revolt was the collapse of the authority of Damascus Caliphate over the western provinces. With the Umayyad Caliphate distracted by the challenge of Abbasids in the east, the western province of the Maghreb and Al-Andalus spun out of control. From around 745, the Firids, an illustrious local Arab clan descended with the Obl ibn Nafi al-Farizi, seized power in the western provinces and ruled them almost as a private empire on their own. Understanding with the Abbasids, hoping they would be allowed to continue their autonomous existence, but when the Abbasids rejected the offer and demanded submission, the Firids declared independence and, probably out of spite, invited the post remnants of the Umayyad clan to take refuge in their dominions. It was a fateful decision, and they soon regretted. For the Umayyads, the sons and grandsons of the caliphs had more legitimate claim to rule than the Firids themselves. Rebellious-minded local lords, disenchanted with the autocratic rule of the Firids, conspired with the arriving Umayyad exiles.